Be careful on the internet, because some of the stuff out there will scar your soul. It all happened when I was just browsing the internet, scrolling through different posts and things like that. I was watching YouTube and an ad appeared to the left of my screen. It was some sort of a skeleton mask, and the words underneath said, "Want a good scare? Click here." I ignored it like I do with every other advertisement and I moved on. And then I saw it back again on another video that I clicked on. So, my curiosity piqued and I clicked on the skeleton. I wish I never clicked on that dang thing. It brought me to this website that really didn't have much on it except a About Us section and a phone number for contact. So, I clicked on the About Us section and it brought up a chat box. It said, "What can I help you with?" Thinking it was some dumb robot, I said, "What do you guys do?" I hit enter on my keyboard and I waited for a response. The person replied and said, "We are an extreme scare group that will scare you or your friends for nothing in return. We have groups located in every US state. Please contact this phone number for more information. Goodbye now." So that's all the info they could give me. I did the only thing anyone else would have done. I called the phone number. I called it in and didn't pick up. Someone then texted me from the number. "Hello, I am your skeleton associate. How may I help you?" I thought this was going to be a scam or something. Like, when were they going to ask for my credit card number? Anyways, I texted back, "Scare me." Easy 2 words that I never put too much thought into what I just texted. He replied with, "Yes, we have a team in North Carolina waiting approval." I said, "What approval?" He sent 3 different waivers. "Fill these out and we shall start." I was really interested now, and I filled them all out, reading some of it over, but thought to myself, how bad could it be? This probably would be the best example on why you should always read the fine print. He said, "Great, confirmation is complete. They are on their way now." I replied with, "What do you mean, on their way?" He ended things with, "Enjoy your time. SM." Well, that was a waste of time. What did he mean by on their way? Like, who is on their way? It is weird that he got my state, but that's from my postal code. Maybe he's just trying to scare me. I looked up the phone number online and nothing came up. 0 information. It was like a ghost. I quickly called back the phone number that I'd called earlier, and with my luck it said, "This line has been disconnected. Please call back later. Thank you." Oh crap. Later that night, I was walking my dog. We went around the block like always, so nothing different, except there was. The strange thing that night, there is a van parked a little bit away from my house, a car or 2 away. It was a black van with someone in it. I couldn't make anything out of it because it was very far away. I told my dog to hurry up and I started walking back to my house. As I was walking back to my house, I saw who was in the van. It was a man dressed in all black, with a skeleton skull mask that wrapped all the way around his head. There was black covering his eyes, so I couldn't see who was wearing it. He was just staring at me, walking back to my house. My stomach dropped as I saw this, remembering what I had clicked on earlier with the skeleton ad, and how that they were on their way to me. Crap. I really didn't think he was telling the truth. How did this group even find me so quick? Maybe it was because of my stupid mistake of clicking on that stupid ad in the first place. I was looking over my shoulder until I got back in my house, closed the front door and locked it. I never was so shaken up about anything until this point. I knew that they were here for me. I didn't know if I should call the cops or not. Like, why were they just sitting out there? There is a spotlight on their car from the streetlight that I could see from my window. I was peeking out of my bedroom blinds and all of a sudden, the streetlight went out. It just sparked up and blew a socket or something. And then I saw 3 men get out of the back of the van. They were all wearing the same mask. A skeleton. I was freaking out at this point. I had no idea what to do. I had a couple of knives that I had collected over the years and I took one from my closet. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard a crash of breaking glass downstairs. Oh no, they're in the house. They broke the living room window and I heard them walking around downstairs. They were also talking, saying something about, "Don't hurt him, just bring him with us." I couldn't make out everything that they were saying, but I was relieved for a second and then I heard one coming up the steps. My adrenaline shot back up, and I was in fight or flight mode now. I felt so ready for one of these pricks to just come into my room, and I was going to stab them so fast that they wouldn't see it. And then all I saw from the corner of my eye, a man wearing a skeleton mask holding an axe. He screamed at me, "Get down! I won't hurt you if you just listen." The other man that was coming up the stairs had jumped on me, throwing the knife away from me. We wrestled until the other man in my room came over and put a plastic bag around my head. Suffocating, I passed out and I fell unconscious. I woke up somewhere. I had no clue where I was. I was strapped to this chair in the middle of this concrete building. There was nothing except concrete. I then realized that they had kidnapped me and I could be miles from home now. Heck, I could be miles from civilization now. This place looked like it had been abandoned for years. All of a sudden, I heard a noise. It came from behind me and it was a loud bang, like something had dropped on the ground. It echoed through the building. "Hello, Peter. Are you ready to play our game?" I screamed, "Get me out of here!" I was so upset that he thought kidnapping someone was a game. "You're a psychopath, you know that." He replied, "Oh, I've known that for years. Tell me something new." I was in a bad situation and I had to think how to get out. He said, "Do you like swimming?" As soon as he said that, the 3 men came back out. One of them kicked the chair down, so I was laying on my back with my hands and feet still tied. They laid a dirty rag over my face and started pouring gallons of water on me. If this isn't the worst, I don't know what is. They continued for what seemed to be like hours, but to my knowledge, it was only a couple of minutes. I soon passed out. I felt like I was drowning and I couldn't do anything but take it. I later woke up in a dark room. It had 6 walls of concrete and an ultraviolet light. There was a message on the wall written in some type of paint, only viewed in the purple light. It glowed. "Welcome to hell." I thought to myself that there isn't much I could say that wouldn't make this place seem any worse. Someone came in and kneed me in the face. My nose bleeding, I fell on the ground. It was a cold, hard ground. He said, "Let's go play, shall we, Peter?" It was the same skeleton man. He picked me up and he threw a black mask over my face so I couldn't see anything. I was dropped in a dark room. That was very gross and it smelled awful. I couldn't see anything in there, but the smell made me want to puke. I gagged a couple of times. I then heard a whisper. It was very faint, but it made it out to be an old man. He was saying something like, "Help me," and it was coming from the corner of the room. I crawled over and what I saw terrifies me to this day. It was an old man with a giant gash sliced across his stomach. He had his hands on it. Blood was everywhere. I could still imagine that sight to this day. He said one other thing to me. "Run." There was a bang and a door opened. I smelled gasoline and I heard a chainsaw start up. The humming of the engine ringing in my ears. I was shoved away from a giant man. He had a skeleton mask on and had a chainsaw in his hands. He went at the old man lying on the ground. I heard him scream. That scream haunts me to this day. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I ran into the hallway that was made of concrete and no windows. Multiples of the exact same room. I don't want to know what they did in these little rooms. It was horrifying. I knew if I stopped running that I would be dead. It came to 2 turns. I went left and someone was standing in the middle of the hallway. I turned around as quick as possible, and that man with the chainsaw grabbed me with his bloody hands and took me to the ground. I hit my head against the concrete, and that man put a syringe in my neck. I fell asleep instantly. I was violently awoken by someone throwing me in the back of the van. The doors were shut and locked, no windows. This was the same exact van that was out front of my house the other night. It was shaky. There were tons of bumps along the way. It was like we were on a gravel road or something. I had my head covered with a bag and my mouth taped shut. There were cable ties around my hands and feet. I was sliding all over the place in the back of that van. The sunlight shined through the bag as the door was opened. Someone said, "Grab him," and they took me outside. I was pushed down on my knees on what felt like sand. It made sense and all. I kind of lived near the Outer Banks. I was familiar with the feel of that sand. And then someone violently took off the bag and ripped off the tape from my mouth. I said, crying, "I just want to go home. Please, don't kill me." Looking down, I started to break. There was an empty coffin made of wood dug out from the sand of the beach. I looked around and no one was to be seen for miles. There were also 4 shovels and 4 men standing around me, all wearing the same skeleton mask. I cried once again. "You don't have to do this, please, I have a family." At that point I was sobbing and I couldn't stop. Someone took me by my arms and said, "Get in." They pushed me down into the coffin. Somebody quickly closed the coffin and I was stuck in it. There was a video camera that had a red blinking light above me. They were recording me. My hands still zip-tied. I was hopeless. I heard sand being poured over the coffin. Little by little, I felt the oxygen leaving the coffin. I was being buried alive. I knew that if I started to panic that I would lose air more quickly by hyperventilating. I started to breathe very slowly, waiting for my end. Waiting for my last, hopeless breath of life to leave me. I then took my last breath. I felt my soul leave me that moment. I thought that was it. I must have passed out. I awoke with my hands and feet free. I was in a ditch down the street from my house. No bag over my head or tape on my mouth. There was one thing though, a gray skeleton mask beside me. It had a note in it. It said, "Hope you enjoyed your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be scared by the best. SM." I knew exactly what SM stood for too. Skeleton Man. Look, if you could learn anything from this story, I would want one thing and one thing only. Be careful on the internet. Never click on anything that doesn't have anything to do with you. If you think something is suspicious online, then you are probably right. All websites give up information on you. Some just exploit that and things can go very bad. If you ever see a skeleton man ad on the internet or anything that has to do with scaring people with a skeleton, just do yourself a favor and don't click it. It was almost summer break when my cousins took me to the art museum. Well, I took them. I live in a fairly small town in the US, and we were close enough to the art museum to walk. I will refer to my cousins as Thomas and Elaine. Elaine is in high school, and Thomas was just about to enter freshman year at the end of the school year. Elaine is kind of a goth, and she gets that from her mother. Thomas is a computer geek, and he likes memes and video games and such. They live a few blocks away from me, and we saw each other often. It was May 16th when I walked over to their home, and Elaine told me that she had one final assignment on the ancient Egyptian mummies, so I had an idea. Instead of browsing the internet for information, and then watching some Black Butler, I told her that we should go to the art museum. The art museum had an exhibit all about mummies. They were both hesitant at first, but when I urged them on, they agreed. Their mom said it was fine, but that she wasn't driving us. She already had to go to work in about an hour. I spoke up before anyone else. "We'll be fine walking," I said gladly. My cousins didn't argue, and they got their shoes on. Making our way to the museum by memory, we talked about some of the things that had been going on. I'm a really big movie buff, and I gave them my views on some of the newer movies coming out. 10 o'clock rolled around as we got to the art museum. We went through some medieval armor and then saw the African mask exhibit. Elaine reminded us of the assignment, and we went up some stairs to the new mummy area. I had been the year before with my school, and I showed my cousins the cool new features. Elaine and Thomas took notes, and before we knew it, the time was around 4 o'clock. We stayed around for about another hour, admiring the modern art, and we left at 4:45. I had bought granola bars, and when I took them out, we realized how hungry we were. I proposed rolling down the big hill in front of the building, and Elaine agreed. Thomas stayed behind at these steps because he didn't want to get dirty. He said it was fun, but he didn't want to take a million showers. We all played and joked around together for a little while, and 5 o'clock rolled around. We really should be getting home, since it was about a 40-minute walk, maybe longer in the dark. Elaine was feeling extra rebellious and wanted to travel through the backwoods to the museum. I said heck no, because I had listened to tons of horror stories and encounters like this one before. Like I said, I'm a pretty big movie buff, and I take my horror movies seriously. Thomas said that he didn't care, so with 2/3 of the party in agreement, we did. We took a few steps not before a screech erupted from, well, somewhere. We stopped and we looked at each other. "Probably an owl," Elaine said. "No, it wasn't. That was some scary crap right there," Thomas said. "Y'all freaking out. Take a chill pill." "Guys, shut up. Stop arguing," I said. Me being the film nerd that I am, I started to talk a lot more. "Elaine, think of it like a horror film. That's not what you say when a sound like that is heard. In fact, the people who say that stuff are killed right off the bat. Plus, arguing always gets the protagonist nowhere." "I know, right? Totally the rules. It had to be a bird. This is a wildlife area, but also a small park. There isn't going to be any kind of wild animal." We hear another screech, and I start to jog. Thomas follows my lead, and so does Elaine. Trust me, she isn't dumb, even if she said that stuff about the noise. I ran faster, and that's when I fell. This would be fine if we were on a flat path, but I fell into a creek, and it was kind of deep, with the edges all slippery and muddy. Thomas and Elaine called out to me, and I said that I was fine. I told them that it would be better if they kept running. I would find my way out. They left, and I turned to the phone in my pocket. I switched the flashlight on, and I walked a little. It started to rain slightly. I could swear that I heard a whole lot of creepy things in the woods. Nothing as creepy as what I was about to encounter. I found some vine thing inside the walls of the ditch, and I proceeded to climb it. I thought it would be cool, climbing vertically on the wall. But then I heard this raspy breathing. It was horrible and it sounded empty. "Bear." The voice had said my name. The voice snapped and I fell into the shallow rocks. My phone screen had cracked and the flashlight buzzed off. The scary thing is that only my cousins call me by my middle name, Bear, not like how most people call me by my first. I sat up and I looked over the top of the creek wall. Nothing. I turned and I found a shadow. My eyes adjusted to the light, and Thomas was there. And then when I focused more, I was terrified. It was anything but not Thomas. The creature looked like it was wearing Thomas's flesh. Its eye sockets drooped, and its lips were cracked. There was no color in the skin, and the monster's limbs were thin as a starving man's stomach. I saw tears in the flesh suit that only showed the white and red of bone. I felt chills down my spine, and I backed away. I heard faint whispering, but the voice saying it was talking too fast. I turned to run, and then before my eyes, I stood there. Except it wasn't me, because the same kind of skin-wearing creature stood there, with these same distinct features. Its mouth, though, was torn right off, and instead, there were these sharp fangs protruding from the skin mask it was wearing. The whispering grew louder, but not slower. It started to storm violently in the sky above, and then my doppelganger monster did something that haunts me to this day. It started to cry. This was not the salty water that inhabits our everyday bodies. It was crying blood. I let out a few tears myself, but before breaking down, I turned to find that the Thomas monster was gone. I ran in the darkness and encountered an incline in the terrain. I moved fast, with sweat and tears blocking my vision. When I looked back, I saw a creature that looked just like Elaine, but was covered in blood, and her skin was bursting at the seams, with veins sputtering all over her. She was fast, and she bounded at me in one leap. I was clumsy and apparently lucky enough to trip on a log, and I plummeted to the ground. The monster headed straight into the open air and landed on something. I heard a ringing in my ears as a howling screech was let out. When it stopped, I looked over, and I found that not only had the monster missed, but by chance, it landed enough on the stump of a rotted tree that it had some wood sticking out, strong enough to impale the creature. Its body oozed a silvery liquid, running down and burning the body. I bolted off and I came out of the edge of the woods. I almost ran into the traffic of a rush hour road, but stopped. It had begun to rain lighter, pattering on the sidewalk and blowing the trees. I heard one last scream from the woods. I ran to the nearest bus pavilion. I saw two sitting figures and slowly approached, Thomas and Elaine. I swear, I wanted to take Thomas down with a tackle, but my instincts failed. I made a mixed face, happy and still terrified because of what I saw in the woods. I sat next to them, and they told me some important things. We saw a woman in the woods. She had an art museum uniform, but her legs were missing. We got closer, but then she got up with her arms and faced us. Her eyes were gone. The holes where the eyes should be were bleeding, and her neck had a giant slice through the middle, going from one end to the other. We ran like crazy and hid in the woods. It breathed so hard it sounded close and far away at the same time. We tried to stay quiet, but it found us and we had to run again. We did make it out though, and here we are. We all made it back after this incident. I tried to do research on missing people in the area, and I found the lady Thomas and Elaine saw in the woods. She had worked at the art museum and obviously met a fate that we could have. The reason I posted all of this is because the other night I was hanging out at their place when their parents weren't home. We were all playing video games and we heard a tapping at the window. When we looked outside, no one was there. But in the parking lot across the yard, someone was watching us. We all went to bed shortly after. When we woke up this morning, there were entrails all across the streets and yards in our town. The police were called, but no evidence was left by anyone coming on the porch and leaving a wheelbarrow's amount of guts. We also are getting a news report that at the zoo, which is right next to our art museum, was broken into overnight, with most of the animals gone. I mean the monkey, the snakes, bears, lions. They must have been executed by the creatures that we ran into. Doing research now, we may have come across skinwalkers, but that doesn't completely fit. Sure, skinwalkers have a costume-like appearance, but the victims are taken over, not copied off of a physical form. But none of us are sure. It is either a special kind of cryptid or demon. All of this time, I thought those creepypastas were just urban legends, or just some really creative writing. How many of these creatures are out there? Where did they come from? I hear screaming outside right now. We're locking the doors and heading to the basement. I'm writing this now before it's too late. I can't believe we still have internet access. This is for whoever is out there. You can refer to me as Bear. I'm using a laptop to send out a warning, if it's not too late. My neighborhood has become overrun by horrifying creatures. These monsters take the form of the mutilated bodies of friends, family, pets, and even complete strangers. If you see someone with pale skin, scratches, and missing body parts or worse, run, hide. It has been 2 weeks since we encountered them in the woods behind the art museum. I'm surprised to say that my friends and I are still alive and far away from my hometown, but I know why. Last time I wrote, we were in the basement, with our zoo animals ripped apart and the town left in a rotting stench of bodily fluids. We stayed in that basement for a week, and on Friday we heard a knocking. It was quiet at first, but it became aggressive. It seemed to come from everywhere outside the house, testing our sanity. We stood still with the weapons that we had grabbed from around the house. For the past week, there had been no noise except for the screaming on Monday. There were no birds, no cars, not a single soul. The banging stopped after 2 hours. The banging had lasted that long, but as far as we could tell, nothing had gotten into the house. After 5 minutes of relief, we heard a tapping. After looking around, Elaine found the source. It was coming from the window of the basement, on ground level. We slowly approached, and when we got to the window, we could see 5 of my friends, 2 of which had bikes. They had all come to my house to find me, and they remembered my cousin's house too. I was glad that they were still alive, and not just decaying doppelgangers. After letting them in, we had 8 people in our party. My cousins and I were already low on food, so me and 2 of my friends, Elijah and Sam, left to find a grocery store. Once we got in, after finding these streets empty, we grabbed 2 bags and all of the necessary food and vitamins that we needed. We also looked out for any pharmaceutical drugs in case of an accident. And then we heard a crash from the front of the store. We ducked in the aisle, and then peeked up to see what was happening. 2 hulking figures covered in blood and torn skin were stalking the checkout lines. In desperation, we hid in the freezers in the dairy section, relatively close to us. When we hid behind the milk and egg cartons, the door closed with a smack. Crouching behind the shelves of food, we could see the 2 creatures slowly crawl over to the doors. When they crawled, there was something off about their limbs. They seemed cracked and bent in all the wrong places, like someone had beaten them repeatedly with a metal rod. Their chests were ripped apart and had insides hanging out of the torso. They came right up to the doors, and one of the creatures started sniffing. It put its rotting hand up to the glass and shrieked so loud that we had to cover our ears. Both creatures ran towards the exit and then right towards the new figure standing in the produce aisle. He raised a crossbow and shot one dead in an instant. The other monster snarled and leaped at the man. He took out a dagger and sliced at its eyes. There was a gush of the same liquid that oozed from Elaine's doppelganger, and its body slowly disintegrated through the tiled floor. The man turned from the monster to us, and I mean us, like he saw us. We clumsily got out of the freezer and walked towards him cautiously. "Who are you?" I asked. "Call me Claudius," he responded. "I've been hunting these things for a while, but I've never seen a wave this big." "What are they?" Sam asked him. He turned to Sam saying, "They're monsters from an alternate dimension, one where we exist slightly different. They've been leaking into our universe slowly. At least that's what I know based off of certain evidence. I still do not know what they do here." Holy crap, this was a lot. We were able to make it clear that there were more people in our party, and he said that if we got them, we could get out of here. And that's what we did. After getting in his van, he handed us some equipment. It looked so medieval, with crossbows and potion bottles, full of little details straight out of the Supernatural show. "So you're a monster hunter?" Elaine asked. "What do you hunt?" "I usually spend my time up north with Wendigos, skinwalkers. I even took down a hellhound once. I'm not the best, but I can get you out of here." "So all of this is real?" Sam asked. Claudius gave a subtle nod. As we were driving, I noticed that the doppelganger monsters were starting to chase us. Claudius immediately handed the wheel over to Elaine and told her to drive north. The closer we got to a cold climate, the less creatures that we will have to deal with. He pulled out 5 crossbows and made sure that he had certain arrows, which he said were tipped with freezing iron, one of their weaknesses. He started shooting at them, and so did me and my friends. All of us didn't have the most precise aim, and most of the arrows missed. I remember hitting one of the things right on the forehead, and having a little mini victory. And then we all heard a thumping on the roof. Even Claudius looked up, and the next thing we knew, a creature had burst its way through the ceiling. It grabbed Thomas, but was quickly dispatched. We hauled it out of one of the windows before its body melted the floor of the van. The more we rode, the less that we saw, until eventually, all of them were gone. As far as I know, we're still heading north to a more secure base. I was able to figure out that most people got out of town on evacuating buses before being torn to shreds, but we didn't exactly know where the monsters are going. If you see one of these creatures, run, hide. God knows what they want, and God might as well know what they will do to you.